Charis, Panaligan, UN Representative.
Juvy, Sejera, representing
Meneses, representing the United States of America.
Malicad, representing France.
I'm Joshua Kim, representing
Belgium.
One of the primary forces driving violent and chaotic changes in the vast region of Middle East is the Islamic State of Iraq and al-Sham or Syria, or ISIS, a transnational Sunni Islamist insurgent and terrorist group that controls large areas of Iraq and Syria, has affiliates in several other countries, has attracted a network of global supporters, and disrupts international security with its acts and campaigns of violence and terrorism. ISIS has shown their capacity through their brutal attacks, violations of human rights, and hatred towards others on cultural, religious, and ethnic grounds. The terrorist has been around for some time and has been proclaiming its intentions and goals for a long time already. But it was on June 2014 when the group escalated and took the world by surprise, starting with its takeover of the northern city in Mosul in Iraq, and then advancing towards Baghdad, massacring its adversaries and threatening to eradicate the country's many ethnic and religious minorities, and formally declaring the establishment of a caliphate. After the airstrikes authorized by the US against ISIS various locations on August 2014, which reportedly damaged multiple fighting positions and armed vehicles of the group, the terrorist group released footages of the beheading of American journalists James Foley and Stephen Sotloff. Since then, the beheading of foreign nationals and the threats from ISIS dramatically continued. The group's brutal violence has attracted attention across the globe and has drawn other countries to make actions in destroying it. Threats from the ISIS terrorist group have become more profound and numerous over time. It has not stopped its verbal threats and the physical acts of violence against the United States and other forces against them. To address this terrorism effectively, we should embrace a tough and smart measures and frameworks in order to stop, to defeat, and to destroy ISIS. So here are the map in the Middle East. The red ones are the places taken over by the Islamic State group. The green ones are the Iraqi government. The blue ones is the Syrian government. And the pink ones are the places of the Syrian rebel forces.
France's military efforts against ISIS have developed gradually over the course of the last 15 years, spreading from limited sorties in Iraq to include missions over Syria to the deployment of an aircraft carrier to the Persian Gulf. France began airstrikes against the Islamic State in Iraq in September of 2014. It marked the first time France had launched a direct military intervention in the Middle East since helping a patrol to a no-fly zone over Iraq prior to the American invasion in 2003, which France pointedly refused to join. The first French strike that came within 24 hours of President François Hollande saying this country would join the air campaign, demolished a weapons depot, and reportedly killed dozens of militants. French planes also began flying reconnaissance missions in their delivering humanitarian aid. Our government is continuing its operations such as airstrikes to ISIS various locations. We have the full determination to defeat the terrorist group.
In line with the ISIS threat, Belgian authorities put hundreds of soldiers on the street after the Paris attacks, but they are concentrated in Brussels and Antwerp. Belgium has produced the greatest number of Western foreign fighters per capita in Iraq and Syria. Our Belgian foreign fighters were traveling to Iraq and Syria each week.
It is true that terrorists have been hitting many cities not only in our region, not only in Turkey, but also other parts of the world. Today, there are a number of countries that suffer from terrorism, for example, Daesh in Syria and Iraq. Terrorism in Sinai, terrorism in Yemen, terrorism in Libya, terrorism in Mali, terrorism in Nigeria, terrorism in Pakistan, terrorism in Afghanistan, and this requires a very strong effort to fight. Without a doubt, there will be coordination in these efforts. We have the full determination to defeat the terrorist group in our neighborhood and all over the world. Last month, in fight against ISIS, Turkey again deployed tanks inside Syria to target positions held by Islamic State's militants. 20 Turkish tanks, backed by artillery, entered northern Syria, about 35 miles from where Turkish forces first crossed into the country 10 days ago. Turkey military has no plans to stay in Syria, but aims to protect its border from ISIS and separatist Kurdish militias.
The anti-ISIS states have actually had some real successes against the group. Their military campaigns together with their airstrikes efforts have been taken away some of ISIS territory and reportedly have damaged multiple fighting positions and armed vehicles of the group. Those serve as huge losses for ISIS. However, merely military measures will not be enough. In order to stop the ISIS, it is given already that strong, unified, and effective military is imperative. Aside from the importance of the military, it is also important to include political aspects to the solution of the group's threat. As the root of the conflict, the ISIS flourish lies on the political instability in Iraq and Syria. It is equally important for it to be part of the solution. The political problems that drive the conflict must be solved, though those political problems are also very hard to fight. For one, it is very difficult to defeat ISIS while there is also a civil war raging in Syria. The Assad regime is not only against ISIS but is also against and more focused on Syrian rebels. The Syrian rebels, on the other hand, are also more focused on Assad as they see Assad more of the enemy than ISIS. The chaos between the Syrian regime and Syrian rebels is also what derives and perpetuates other Syrians to turn into ISIS. It is the underlying political disputes and challenges that ISIS exploits. It is why groups like ISIS thrives. Therefore, it is very important to put an end to the civil war in Syria. To first find a peace deal between the Syrian and the Syrian rebels. Indeed, it will not be easy since there is also a division of support between the major powers in the international community on who to support between the Syrian war parties. As such, a truly unified international community effort is needed.
Another one is that Iraq needs to reshape its government. It has to have a government where both Shia and Sunni can trust. Their government must further reach out to Iraq's Sunni communities and build more inclusive approach.
Lastly, for ISIS to dry out, it is important to drive away its supporters and recruits in both Iraq and Syria, and might as well to the whole Middle East region. It requires eroding the support it relies on. As such, it is important to give attention and tackle the factors why people support and join the group. ISIS movements is a result of continuous mistreatment of their own societies. Most people who join them are often those people who have suffered grievously from the Shah-controlled government, those who are often subjected to police brutalities, those who are often oppressed for their religious activities, and those who are desperate and helpless or poor. Most of them thus see ISIS as someone they can rely on, or someone they can ally with against the government, possibly even the opposite's extremism. Thus, giving securities for all ethnic and all religious groups, respecting citizens regardless of religion or tribal groups is needed. The local grievances about political instability in the region must be attended to, and solutions must be catered as soon as possible. The governments must provide an active participation and interaction between the government and the citizens in order to have stability between them. Adequate and appropriate policies to address social inequalities and sectarian problems should be adopted.
It will be extremely difficult to completely eradicate the ISIS threat. It will take time and will definitely come at a price. Nevertheless, with a better governance and a stronger and more unified international effort and commitment, it is possible.
Okay, let me ask you a little bit about Kurds. I don't claim to know all about Kurdish politics, but the top priority for the United States in Syria is to fight the Islamic State. In that fight, the US has Kurdish forces and allies that the US are arming in that fight. The day that Vice President Biden came to Turkey to meet with their president, Turkish tanks went into Syria and they attacked Kurdish troops that the US support. So, are you an enemy of our ally, or are you our ally?
Well, actually, it's not the Kurdish group. We have to make it correct. So, this is a group of terrorist organizations named PYD or YPG. So, we are not against the Kurds in the northern part of the Syrian territories. The Kurds are the native people of this region, and also in the meantime, Arabs and the Turkmens are the original people of the region. Our position is that we are against having one-party region in the northern territories of Syria. So, that's why, if YPG or PYWD makes it more than 911 kilometers length of territory as PYD territory, it is not acceptable from Turkey. So, if we are okay for the existence of the Kurds in the region, but all the other people, Arabs, Turks, and others, must also live there for long. So, we are against the terrorist activities of PYD. As you know, PYD also has very strong connections with PKK, which is a clear terrorist organization. And also, PKK is accepted by the Western countries as one of the major terrorist organizations in the region.
Thank you, Ms. Sejera.
You're welcome, Ms. Flores.
Last week, 4 airstrikes against the Syria positions was performed by 2 F-16 jet fighters and 2 A-10 support aircraft. This US-led bombing of Syria air base is a serious and blatant aggression. After the recent attack on the Syria army, we come to the terrible conclusion that the White House is defending the Islamic State. Was this unwillingness of the American side to coordinate with Russia in its action against the terrorist group in Syria? We demand a full and detailed explanation about whether this was deliberate support of the Islamic State or another wrong target, another mistake by US.
With regards to that, Mr. Kim, we, the United States, release our regret through the Russian Federation for the unintentional loss of life for Syrian forces. We would also like to make it clear that the airstrike was halted immediately when the coalition officials were informed by Russian officials that it was possible that personnel and vehicles targeted were part of a Syrian military. Our coalition forces would not intentionally strike a known Syrian military unit.
Yes, I see.
Okay, does anyone have further questions or clarifications? We're good. If that's the case, meeting adjourned.